thank you so much for your time. It is such a treat to spend some time with you today, and I appreciate you spending a few minutes just so we can really kind of capture your best practices and lessons learned from your experience going through Breakline. I was hoping we could start with you just kind of introducing yourself, give me a quick idea of your background before we kind of get into your more formal elevator pitch as well.
Hi, I'm Lauren Schor. I am a recent Breakline alum. I started out my career with about 10 years in the US government on the civilian side, followed by now 7 years in the private sector, specifically in tech. And I recently just went through the Breakline program to help me learn how to do interviews and approach jobs and my new job search even better. And I'm really excited to say I found my next job of my dreams.
Awesome. I'm excited to get more into where you landed in a few minutes. But if we could start, as you know, one of the really big daunting tasks for a lot of breakliners is to go over the response to tell me about yourself. It feels like it's the easiest thing in the world. In reality, it's actually not. It takes practice, it takes reps, it takes building up, I think, some confidence to figure out what's most relevant in your background. Can you just, I'm not going to time you, I'm not going to give you any feedback on these at once, but I would love for you to kind of walk us through your elevator pitch so people can get a better idea of how you incorporated your background and your tremendous amount of experience that you brought into these conversations moving forward as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I will also iterate or reiterate what you just said, which is that I think elevator pitch was actually the thing that was scariest for me going into it. It took a lot of iteration and a lot of practice with my participant advisor, Lauren, and it got a lot of practice to where I got really comfortable with it. So with that, here's the outline of my elevator pitch, which is, hi, my name is Lauren. I'm so excited to meet with you today. Thank you for your time. Telling you a little bit about myself. I have over 16 years of experience in project management, creative problem solving, and effective cross-functional communication. About half of that time has been in the startup and software industries in a variety of cross-disciplinary roles to include chief of staff, project management, and customer relationship engagement. I also have experience in contract negotiation and execution, customer relations, and internal technical team management. The other half of my experience has been within the US government, managing information collection and helping those in the field gather information to resolve policymaker gaps in order to enable data-driven decisions. I've joked for years that my number one skill is being a positive enabler, but in all seriousness, it probably really is enabling humans and teams for successful outcomes.
Awesome. Okay. Give me a quick guesstimate. How many times do you think you practiced this?
Oh my gosh. Honestly, probably 30. I think I've said that out loud at least 30 times, and I'm still using notes as a reference because if I don't practice it this week, it already becomes rusty. So it's no shame in that, but it's important, I think, to continue practicing that really over the duration of your career because you never know when you're going to need it.
Absolutely. That's such a great, important thing to remind yourself of just keeping that muscle warm, right? Really flexing it as much as possible and getting those reps in. Okay, so walk us through your interview processes with our partners. I know you've had a couple of different at bats and different conversations that you went through. Would you mind kind of telling us a little bit more about your Breakline journey?
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking about this just earlier today, and my break journey wasn't what I expected to be. If anything, honestly, it was better. When I came into Breakline, I was super excited about one or two companies very specifically, and that Breakline was partners with. And Breakline did everything humanly possible to get me in the door with both of those companies. And during some of those interviews, found out some of the roles weren't really the right place. They're great companies, but it wasn't necessarily the right fit for me right now. But getting those reps in and getting that practice in interviews with some of those companies as well as the other ones was really helpful and valuable to me. So that when the right role came along, I felt even more comfortable and confident, and I practiced and prepared all of the skills that Breakline teaches. So getting a little bit more specific, I think my first interview actually from Breakline, it didn't go great. It didn't go badly. I think out of like the four main questions that were asked, I kind of rocked two, and the other two weren't super great. One of the off advantages to Breakline is that I was able to actually get tangible feedback through my participant advisor, and we were able to work on specifically the pieces that didn't go great. Because even though I have personally been in the tech sector for a couple of years, my interview skill set was rusty, and I needed help really amping myself up to that next level and next point in my career.
That is so important to consider when you're, going through this. And sometimes you feel like you network a lot. You're really comfortable with the jargon that's being used in the tech industry. It doesn't always equate to being a strong interviewer. So really getting those reps in and everything as well. So you
I mean,
mentioned
the reps,
maybe
yeah,
being a little
the reps are
surprised.
invaluable.
Yeah, you mentioned being a little surprised about the break line process or
Mhm.
your experience kind of going through it and kind of having this one track mind of a couple of companies that you're most excited about.
Mhm.
And what surprised you about the process? What was it that you think you mentioned maybe the role surprised you? Was it some of the other opportunities that maybe excited you more than you anticipated as well? Tell me a little bit more about what was most surprising.
Um, so I think there were 2 things. One, I think that I didn't understand the current job environment. It has been a really long time since I've had to really put myself out there and compete for a job, especially coming from when I left the US government, I applied to one company and I got the dream job I wanted at that one company. So I had been through the interview process, but I had never been through the competitive state I think that's currently in the world, with the great resignation and now with so much more jobs remote, and therefore opening up that pool is just a completely different beast that I've never really had to put my neck out for. Um, so I think that I'm sorry, I totally lost track now with the rest of your question.
Just about what surprised you in the process as far as
Surprising, thank
like
you. Yeah.
the companies or role that may have surprised you along the way.
So the first thing I think that surprised me, and this is where I was actually just going, was it took a little bit of time. In the past, again, because I hadn't had to put my neck out there, it took a little bit more time, not by much, but that was one thing. You do need to do the reps, and the reps are really important. And it's going to take a little bit of time, and that's okay. And I think that's really normal in the current environment. But getting, to the second part of your question, I think there are just so many companies out there that are doing really valuable and important things. And having an advocate, having an intermediary who understands those companies and what you're looking for means that somebody outside of your own perception can help make connections about what might be a good fit. And I think that's something that's super unique that Breakline offers because it's not me just reading a job description and trying to understand about a company or what roles may or may not be advertised. But I have a whole team within Breakline where I was literally getting emails from Brandon or Zane as well as you saying, "Hey, I just heard about this role. Are you interested in it?" And it wasn't necessarily a company that I was focused on, but all of Breakline partners are valuable contributing members of society, and it was a really exciting opportunities that I was able to get exposure to. And ultimately, that's what led to my next job.
So when you look back, what is it that you think contributed the most to your success and how you were able to take your backgrounds and skill sets and make them relevant to a variety of audiences going through this process?
I mean, I think the two things that are most valuable that stuck out to me are the ability to practice and the coaching that you receive and the ability to do one-on-ones with your participant advisor, as well as the weekly group sessions where you hear yourself and other folks going through their different potential answer questions is just such a unique environment. As I said, when I left the government the first time and I did interviews, I did all of that on my own, and I'm so proud of that experience. But it's also just 10 times more valuable to be able to have an entire team that has your back and to be able to provide that iteration and feedback. And then on top of that, having that connected tissue with the customer success team who learns about what it is you're looking for and then what the different partner companies' needs are and their gaps is just this whole aspect of networking that I could never even imagine.
I think that's such a valuable thing to share too. Did you have any like when you look back and say like those aha moments of like I'm saying this wrong, I'm doing this wrong, I need to change my perspective or how I'm presenting this information.
So, I had a couple of experiences specifically actually on like the group calls where I feel like we were learning from each other. And those really had some massive aha moments where, every now and then it was me. The way I am, I always write my notes down first and then I try to practice them. Everyone's learning style is different. Um, so I would sometimes be listening to what someone else said even before I spoke and was like, oh my gosh, I love the way they're referencing that. or a coach would weigh in with some additional feedback, and I could incorporate that even before I went to go use something. And I think there were several occasions where having that ability to listen and learn from those around me was just, and there's no other way to replace that learning experience, because it's really, I guess what that really is it's more of that exponential learning. It's the compounding learning, not just trying to do things on your own. You really do have that compounding value with the team around you.
That is so true. I think that I can even visualize you sitting down and writing notes. I know you're so good at like taking your notes and like taking feedback from everybody, even if it wasn't direct
Yeah.
or you, right? It's a great opportunity in a safe space to
Yeah.
throw things out there and learn from one another.
Yeah.
And I think you're totally right. While you might have somebody in your cohort that has completely different background and different experiences than you, the way that they're incorporating their, their experiences and data or collaboration or prioritization or different skills that we've all used in different environments
Yeah.
and being able to kind of incorporate those into a storytelling framework is
Yeah.
really valuable to hear from all these different experiences because we can learn so much from each other.
And then on top of that, I mean, so that 110%, and then add on the one-on-one time you get with your person advisor. There was that first interview that I did where I answered a couple questions really well and like one or two not so great. I remember you came to me afterwards and you're like, okay, I have some feedback. There was this one question where you said something around X, Y, and Z. And I was like, okay, yeah, I know exactly what that was. And we ran through it and we figured out a better way to attack that question in the future. And having that experience both in the making a mistake and then growing and learning from it set me up for so much more success.
Yeah. It is a journey. It is a process.
Mhm.
There are peaks and valleys throughout all of it. And it is a process for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So tell us now, where did you end up and what is your role? What is that? I know you haven't even started this job yet, but what does the role entail? Tell us a little bit more about this next step for you.
Yeah. Awesome. So I accepted a role at Robotic Research, a bunch of Breakline alum, which I'm super excited for. And the role specifically is head of internal operations, which is literally the next thing that I was hoping to accomplish in my career path. And so, specifically within that role, um, that company Robotic Research is growing immensely right now, which is why they hired a bunch of Breakline alums and are partnering with Breakline. And they know and recognize that with significant growth, there are already some things and parts of the business that are having some I wouldn't say difficulties, but with growth, there's some things need to change. They know that there's a couple of places where that's going to happen or already happening, and they know that there's going to be more in the future. So a large part of my role is going to be figuring out, using my background in project management and a bunch of the other roles, how do we actually grow as a company and do this better and ideally do it right for this team?
You make that sound like it's a walk in the park.
It's something that I've actually literally feels like the role was kind of made for me. It's something that I love being able to do in a a safe environment where everybody wants that outcome. And the number one thing that was really exciting to me about this company was, in part because of the work I've done with Breakline, um, was when I talked with now my future boss in a week, my future boss, um, I felt seen. He valued my skills. He understood my skills. And being able to work in an environment where your skills and your experiences are immediately of value is, I think that you always get a part of that, hopefully in every work environment. But in this one in particular, it just seems like really the right fit for my skill set and where I was looking to grow. And so it's really exciting.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think it's a great next step and it feels like it was made for you. So I'm very excited. Okay, final question for me. What advice do you have for breakliners as they are going into and hoping to transition into specifically operations roles as well? So anything when you kind of look back, you were in their shoes literally weeks ago. Any advice?
My number one piece of advice is do the work. You need to do the prep questions. You need to practice them, record yourself doing it. I know it feels a little awkward at first, but recording yourself on a video and watching yourself back afterwards will really help you understand how you are perceived by other people. And it will also hopefully help you grow confidence in your own skin and answering these. With that, the next step is really, take advantage of the resources that Breakline has to offer. I mean that both in the coaching and mentoring aspects, go to the weekly sessions, make weekly sessions, make weekly appointments with your participant advisor, sit in on the occasional like big group sessions. The negotiations class with Bethany is awesome. I got called in on that last question. It is tricky, but it is awesome practice. Do the work. And also, I think, especially right now in the current environment, give it a little bit of time. You don't want to ever make a gut reaction job decision, considering, these things take a lot of time. It's a big investment for you, and also in the future. So take the time and really find that job that feels like the right thing. And with that, again, take the time to make sure that you and your participant advisor and the customer success team are aligned. With Brandon, who reached out to me one day and said, "Hey, I know I've been talking with Lauren F, and it sounds like you're interested in a job that I think I found a good option for you." And so, it was literally an email out of the blue to me that brought this opportunity. And if you do the work in advance and you're prepared for it, then you can really find that great opportunity, and things can happen really quickly at the end.
I love it. I think it's so important. I agree. It's a very collaborative experience, and break light, get out of it what you put into it. And
For sure.
hustling through that, being engaged, being open minded, you
Yeah.
might surprise yourself with what opportunities are out there for you that you didn't consider before. And I think you are a perfect example of that. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Congratulations on this
My
next step.
pleasure. Thank you guys.
I'm excited to watch you go crush it for sure.
Thank you.